They called these songs disgusting. They banned them from radio. They dragged the artists through Congress, through the press, through their own front yards. And every single one of these records changed R&B forever. Welcome to R&B Hives, where we don't just play the hits, we tell you the truth behind them. Today we're counting down 10 R&B songs that were absolutely hated when they dropped, but history proved every last one of them right. Some of these you grew up dancing to. Some of them you had no idea were this controversial. And by the time we get to number 1, you're going to feel every single thing we said in that opening line. Number 10, Strokin, Clarence Carter, 1986.
Let me ask y'all something.
Clarence Carter had already been a legend for over a decade. He recorded the Grammy-nominated Patches at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, a tearjerker about a boy losing his father that sold millions. He was respected. He was established. And then in 1986, at 50 years old, he walked into a studio in Atlanta and recorded the most unbanned, unapologetically explicit song in soul history.
Long, soft.
Radio wouldn't touch Strokin, not one station, not even a clean edit, because Carter never made one, and reportedly never planned to. MTV refused the video. The record label, a small independent Atlanta outfit called Ichiban Records, couldn't even get it into stores. So they did something no one had done before at that scale. They pressed the singles and placed them directly into jukeboxes, bar by bar, juke joint by juke joint. Across the Deep South, patrons dropped their quarters and discovered the record on their own. No radio, no MTV, no Billboard rollout, just word of mouth and worn-out grooves.
Did you make love yesterday?
It sold 1.5 million copies that way. Strip clubs put it in rotation. DJs started playing it at weddings. William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, later called it one of the great American songs and put it in his film Killer Joe. Eddie Murphy featured it in The Nutty Professor. Carter kept touring on that record well into his 80s. He put out a new single in 2024 at age 88, and he passed away in May 2026 at 90 years old. The song the industry refused to release outlived every executive who refused to touch it. Number 9, Love to Love You Baby, Donna Summer, 1975. Before Donna Summer became the queen of disco, before the Grammys, before Bad Girls and Hot Stuff turned her into a global superstar, there was one record that the industry tried to erase before it even started. The year was 1975. Summer had moved to Germany, started modeling, and was recording backup vocals for other artists when she met Italian producer Giorgio Moroder and British producer Pete Bellotte. Together, they built a sound nobody had heard before. Electronic, hypnotic, slow-burning disco built around something radio couldn't categorize and definitely couldn't broadcast. The title track from her 1975 album was 17 minutes long in its extended form. Time magazine later reported that Summer simulated 22 separate acts of ecstasy across the recording. The BBC banned it outright. Radio stations across the United States and Europe refused to play it. Italy's state broadcaster, RAI, pulled it from the official charts program. Her own grandmother reportedly heard it and said, "I'll never be able to go to church again." And then the clubs found it. Without radio, without traditional support, the record spread through the dance floor underground like nothing before it. And that momentum carried it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 on the dance chart for 4 consecutive weeks. It became Donna's first major crossover hit, crashing through pop, soul, and club audiences simultaneously. She died in 2012, but that record they tried to silence is still playing somewhere right now. Number 8, Disco Lady, Johnny Taylor, 1976. Johnny Taylor had been singing since the 1950s. He replaced Sam Cooke on lead vocals with the Soul Stirrers gospel group. He spent years at Stax Records building a catalog of soul classics, including Who's Making Love in 1968, before the label went bankrupt in 1975 and left him without a home. He signed to Columbia Records, walked into United Sound Studios in Detroit with producer Don Davis, and recorded a song that Columbia wasn't entirely sure how to market. Taylor himself wasn't convinced it was right for him either. Don Davis stayed adamant. They released it anyway. Disco Lady spent 4 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and 6 weeks at the top of the R&B chart. It sold over 2.5 million copies. Billboard ranked it the third biggest song of 1976. Cashbox called it the #1 song of the entire year. But here's what almost nobody remembers today. Disco Lady was the first single in history to be certified platinum by the RIA. The RIA had just launched the platinum certification in 1976. The very first one ever issued for a single went to Johnny Taylor. Among the sessioned players on that track were Bootsy Collins and Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic. To celebrate, Taylor reportedly took a bath in Dom Perignon. He was 66 years old when he died of a heart attack in Dallas in the year 2000. The Soul Philosopher, the first platinum single artist in history, gone. But Disco Lady plays forever. If you are enjoying this, do well to like, share, and subscribe to keep connected. #7, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right. Millie Jackson, 1974. The song existed before Millie Jackson touched it. Luther Ingram had taken it to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 on the R&B chart in 1972. It was written by Stax Records songwriters Homer Banks, Carl Hampton, and Raymond Jackson. A heartbreaking ballad about an affair that the singer knows is wrong but refuses to end. A great song, a proper song, the kind of song that radio understood how to handle. And then Millie Jackson got her hands on it. She took the original and turned it into an 11-minute suite, starting with the song as written, then inserting her own spoken word section called The Rap, in which she plays the unrepentant mistress who doesn't just admit to the affair. She defends it, dissects it, and refuses to apologize for a single second of it. No hand-wringing, no regret. Just a woman telling the truth from a perspective nobody on radio had ever let a black woman occupy out loud.
You're loving, you is so wrong. I can't be right.
When DJ Frankie Crocker first played it on air, the station reportedly couldn't press copies fast enough. The second day of release, it sold 62,000 copies. It earned 2 Grammy nominations in 1975. The album it came from, Caught Up, was ranked one of the best albums of 1974 by Rolling Stone. And yet, the entire concept, a black woman playing the other woman with no remorse, narrating it in her own words, made industry gatekeepers deeply uncomfortable. The discomfort was the point. It always was. #6, My Prerogative. Bobby Brown, 1988. In 1985, Bobby Brown was pushed out of New Edition, the group he had helped build from the streets of Boston with 4 friends: Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, Ronnie DeVoe, and Ralph Tresvant. He was 17 years old, and the public consensus was that he was the problem. Too wild, too disruptive. His first solo album, King of Stage, underperformed commercially. The narrative around him was, he can't do it alone. He's nothing without the group. So in 1988, he went back into the studio with producer Gene Griffin, added contributions from Teddy Riley and Aaron Hall, and recorded a song that was 1 part New Jack Swing and 1 part middle finger to every person who wrote him off. My Prerogative is autobiographical. He said explicitly that he wrote it in response to the criticism he received for leaving New Edition. A song about making your own decisions and refusing to be defined by other people's judgment. The music industry expected him to fail quietly. Instead, My Prerogative hit #1 on the R&B chart in October 1988. and crossed over to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in January 1989. The album Don't Be Cruel became the best-selling album in the entire United States in 1989. The night before Bobby's 20th birthday, New Edition opened for him at Madison Square Garden. He came out in a robe with King of the Stage stitched across the back and closed the show with the song they said he had no right to make. Think about that. #5, let's talk about sex. Salt-N-Pepa, 1991.
Let's talk about sex for now. To the people at home.
Salt-N-Pepa actually started the song with a lyric that called out the controversy before it even happened. Cheryl Salt James has said in interviews that they opened the record with the line, "I know they ain't gonna play this on the radio," as a direct challenge to censors. And the backlash came exactly as expected. Conservative groups called it irresponsible. Parents wrote letters. One father publicly stated he had been a fan until his daughter started listening to that song. Critics argued that Salt-N-Pepa had young fans and no business talking about sex to them. But here's what those critics refused to read. The song was written and released at the peak of the AIDS crisis. On November 7th, 1991, Magic Johnson announced publicly that he was HIV positive, the biggest star in American sports, disclosing the virus that had been killing people while the country looked away. 2 weeks later, Let's Talk About Sex hit its peak position of #13 on the Billboard Hot 100. In countries including Australia, Austria, Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Zimbabwe, it went to #1. The song earned a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Performance by a duo or group in 1992. Peter Jennings, the legendary ABC News anchor, later personally requested that Salt-N-Pepa record an alternate version, Let's Talk About AIDS, as a public service announcement. The song, they said, was too explicit for young people, became a literal public health tool. Salt said it plainly. People really don't listen to lyrics, do they? We're just talking. Why can't we just talk? #4, Darling Nikki, Prince, 1984. It was never released as a single. It doesn't chart in your traditional countdown sense. And yet no song in the history of R&B or soul music changed the literal structure of how music is regulated in America more than Darling Nikki. The song appears on Purple Rain, Prince's 6th studio album, released in June 1984, an album that sold over 25 million copies worldwide. The record won 2 Grammy Awards. The movie it accompanied grossed over $70 million in theaters. Tipper Gore, wife of then Senator Al Gore, purchased the Purple Rain album in December 1984 as a gift for her 11-year-old daughter. When she heard Darling Nikki, she was, in her own published words, stunned. Then I got mad. By May 1985, she had co-founded the Parents Music Resource Center, the PMRC, along with the wives of other senators and cabinet members. The PMRC published the Filthy 15, a list of songs they deemed most dangerous, with Darling Nikki listed first. On September 19, 1985, a formal Senate hearing was convened. Frank Zappa testified, John Denver testified, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister testified. Zappa called the proposed labeling the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation. But by 1990, the PMRC had pressured 19 major record companies into placing parental advisory labels on their albums. Trinity Broadcasting Network and Jimmy Swaggart both called the song pornographic and satanic. A song Prince never released, as a single rewrote the rule book for every album that came after it. #3, Creep, TLC, 1994. Before we get into the record, you need to understand what was happening inside TLC when this song was being made. Lisa Left Eye Lopes had just been charged with felony arson after setting fire to her boyfriend Andre Risen's sneakers, which accidentally burned down his house. She was in and out of legal proceedings and rehab. The group had been signed to LaFace Records since 1991 and their debut had sold millions. But this was a whole new chapter, a harder chapter. And then producer Dallas Austin handed them Creep, a slow jam written from the perspective of a woman who knows her man is cheating and decides to cheat back. Left Eye was 100% against releasing it as a single. In the documentary The Last Days of Left Eye, she said she threatened to wear black tape over her mouth in the music video because she believed if a man is cheating on you, you leave. You don't creep back. That internal war is part of the record's DNA. The song samples Hey Young World by Slick Rick, and T-Bose's lead vocal is so cool it sounds almost unbothered. That tension between the lyrics' raw honesty and the delivery's icy calm is precisely what made it hit. Creep became TLC's first ever #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album it came from, Crazy Sexy Cool, is certified 9 times platinum. 3 videos were shot for the record before they found one that worked. 3. And the one Left Eye didn't want on radio is the reason that album became one of the best-selling R&B albums in history. If you are enjoying this, do well to like, share, and subscribe to keep connected. Number 2, What Have You Done For Me Lately? Janet Jackson, 1986. By 1986, Janet Jackson had 2 albums and 0 hits. She had grown up performing in her family's Las Vegas shows, appeared on television sitcoms, gotten married and divorced before her 20s, and released 2 bubblegum records that went nowhere under the management of her father, Joseph Jackson. The industry's view of her was simple. She was a Jackson sibling, not the Jackson, a sibling. Then she fired her father, found producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis in Minneapolis, and co-wrote a new album built entirely on the concept of self-determination. She called it Control. What Have You Done For Me Lately was actually the last song recorded for the album. A&M executive John McClane called her back to Minneapolis after she thought they were finished. He wanted one more up-tempo record. When she arrived at the studio, Jam and Terry had it blasting at full volume. Janet's reaction, in Jam's own words, "Who's that for?" They told her it was for her. She said cool, and they got to work. The song was originally conceived for Jam and Terry's own project, but Janet's delivery, clipped, cool, unbothered, demanding, transformed it into something else entirely. Rolling Stone said the record erased the pop ingenue image of her earlier albums overnight. Critics called her an aggressive, independent woman. Others pushed back, calling the tone too demanding, too aggressive, code language that black women in music have always known how to translate. The single peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and earned 2 Grammy nominations in 1987. The Control album stayed on the Billboard 200 for over 2 years. The phrase, "What have you done for me lately?" entered the cultural language, not because it was catchy, because it was true. Number 1, Sorry, Beyoncé, 2016. Nothing prepared the music world for what happened on April 23, 2016. Without a single announcement, without a press campaign, without a lead single, Beyoncé dropped an hour-long visual album called Lemonade exclusively on HBO. And within 48 hours, the most famous marriage in the music industry was on trial in public. Sorry is track 7 on Lemonade. It's a defiant, mid-tempo R&B track built on a pounding production, and within it sits the line that broke the internet. He better call Becky with the good hair. The speculation about who Becky referred to consumed every media platform for weeks. Fashion designer Rachel Roy posted and quickly deleted a cryptic Instagram response that sent the BHIVES into full attack mode. The song wasn't just a personal reckoning, it was a calculated detonation. The backlash wasn't universal outrage. It was specifically directed at Beyoncé for airing her marriage publicly, for daring to be angry out loud, for writing a song that said boy bye to a man the industry had spent years co-signing as an untouchable icon. In 2017, Jay-Z confirmed the infidelity in a New York Times interview, describing how both of them had used their music as therapy, saying her album came out as opposed to the joint album we were working on. Lemonade won the Peabody Award and the Polk Award for journalism. It was nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys. It swept the BET Awards. Sorry hit #1 on the Billboard Hot R&B Songs chart, and the woman they called bitter, reckless, and too public with her pain went on to perform Lemonade to sold-out stadium crowds around the world. She didn't call Becky. She called the whole world, and the world came.